Welcome to the You Must Be Joking podcast, where I don't pretend to have all the answers. Each week, I'm going to be talking to different guests, discussing different topics within the health and well-being industry, but we're going to be remaining curious. We're going to have a little fun along the way, and you get to decide, are we joking? I'm Joanne Groves, and I used to be joking. Dr. Hussain AL-Zubaidi?
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm so rubbish at saying names, so I'll just put that out there. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
This podcast is really called You Must Be Joking, and that comes from the fact that my parents thought it was really funny to call me joking. Well, our surname's King, and so I was Joe, but I'm no longer joking. I'm now Joe Groves, so I'm very serious now.
Oh, that's cool. Your parents sound fun.
Well, they're from the Midlands.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so not far from Leamington Spa. Is that where you're based?
Yeah, Leamington is where I work and Coventry is where I live.
Right, whereabouts in Coventry? Or you don't have to say
Eastern Green.
that.
No, that's right. Eastern Green. It's on the west side of Coventry.
Yep. Okay. My parents always had a shop in the Arcade in Coventry.
Oh, really?
One in Nuneaton and one in Warwick. So,
Oh, wow, okay.
But and sorry, it sounds like I've been sort of snooping, but I thought I should find out a little bit more about you, other than when I saw you at Perform X, I think it was. And but you studied as a GP, was it at St George's Hospital?
Yeah. So medical school at St George's Hospital, and then you do your sort of foundation years, which I did up in the Midlands, so like at Warwick Hospital in Coventry, University Hospital Trust, and then you go into GP training. I did that in Leamington, in fact. Like I sort of stayed where I sort of grew my trade in terms of general practice, but it's a long slog, I tell you. It's a long slog.
Yeah, I mean, but it was funny just like looking up and saying, hang on, you were at St George's and Warwick Hospital, all the places where I've had really great experiences of hospitals, actually.
Good.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
So my son wasn't born at St George's, but he was born at home here in Wimbledon Park. But then when he was about 2 weeks old, I had to go into hospital, and they looked after him very, very well.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah. So I was really interested when I saw you speaking. There were a couple of things that I really liked about what you did. Obviously, you gave great information about GLP-1s, and what I really liked was how you talked about the person and how we meet that person where they are, and your detail to nuance, which can be very, very difficult, particularly in both industries, the fitness industry and as a doctor, because if we remove nuance, we can save lives, but then if we're actually trying to help that person, we have to bring it back to them. And so there were quite a few occasions that I thought you handled the conversation really well, bringing it back to how do we meet the person that walks through the door. And there was another thing to touch on as well, and that was when you got asked about peptides. And that
Yeah.
was quite an interesting turn, because you said, well, there's not much research on it. And then you was asked, well, would you take it? And you were like, well, based on that.
No, yeah, not insane.
So if we kind of go back to movement and making that accessible and inclusive for everybody.
Yeah, like 100%. I think like a lot of the time we simplify physical activity to sort of something that we should do and it's good. And yes, the basic principles it is. But in reality, there's so much that gets in the way of people being active that we need to appreciate. And that amount is different from person to person. And one of the things I've learned, both, being a GP as well as a personal trainer and sort of and understanding both sides of the field, is that you'll never really know what other people are going through and the challenges they face, and don't ever expect to, but ask. Like I think sometimes we always try to assume and presume and assess, and in reality, if you speak to people, they will share their views, they'll share their thoughts, they'll share what they're going through. And so, like, I've always felt that it's absolutely fundamental that we develop personal responsibility, yes, but we do need to appreciate the social determinants underlying it. And my choice to be physically active is far easier than, for example, someone else. But doesn't mean that there isn't the potential for everyone to find movement that works for them, whether that's sport, whether that's physical activity, whatever that may be. We just need to appreciate that that's going to look different for different people, and that we need to provide environments for people to find that movement.
I think that's so important. I mean, there are a couple of things that you've done that I love is, dancing, bringing
Mm.
dance. It's not right for everyone, but for my mum, she had her surgery on her knees, and she said she was told she shouldn't squat. And
Right.
yeah, then I put Johnny Be Good on, and suddenly she's twisting like incredibly low and having a great time at that, and moving her prosecco around the kitchen to the lounge, and she's sitting numerous amounts of times. But
Yeah.
for her, that's it. But
A
she's doing
hundred
pretty
percent.
well.
And just before you move on, like in terms of, like sometimes like healthcare professionals, for example, there, let's say post-surgery, and they state that, not to squat, like there's a very short time frame on that. And sometimes healthcare professionals forget to stress it. So sometimes they won't even mention it because they forget to mention that, oh, I should then tell them then it's absolutely fine and build up to it and you can
Yeah,
really gain a lot of function. And sometimes they do mention it, but they don't realize that what patients hear isn't always everything that you say. And so they sort of hang off certain words. And so some people, I'm sure not your mum, but let's say someone else hears that and they think, oh, that's it. I can never squat again. And that means I can't do anything difficult. Can't do anything challenging. And in reality, that's the opposite of what we want to do. We want to slowly build back after, let's say, an operation like that to try to get as much function as is possible. And each person will be different depending on what they were like before they went into the operation. But I think that's just a key example where we just have to be really careful what we say, because some of the things that patients remember and they will hold for years, and it can
yeah.
really block them from growing.
And it's simple, like you said, at the time it might have been, oh, just don't squat for a while, but all she heard was don't ever squat again. And I had to
Mm,
say, well, how do you get onto the toilet?
yeah.
How do you get off again?
You can't
You
choose that.
can't.
Yeah. It'll be a weird existence without squatting. Yeah, no. Like it's the same. Like my mother-in-law, she just had a knee replacement, and she went in to see the physio, and like so she's been going up and down the stairs like a few times just to get her legs, as stronger as she can. And she's been doing the exercises, the strength exercises, but like she could probably do the strength bit a bit more. Anyway, she goes to the physio, explains that she's trying to walk more and going up and down the stairs. She's finding that okay. And he goes, "Oh no, no, no! Like strength's the most important thing. Walking's not going to give you big muscles." And I'm just like, "This is a 68-year-old woman, and you've just discouraged her from doing the only thing that she was motivating herself to do from a movement perspective, to try and do something that she's finding it hard to motivate herself to do." And you haven't given her an avenue for how she could do that, or asked her why is she finding it difficult or challenging. And so I literally just had to say, look, Mum, like just get rid of that advice just for a second. Let's just go from it from base. I didn't mention anything there and then because I didn't want to sort of upset the physio and make
Yeah.
them look bad in their place of work. But it's just examples like that where it's just like these kind of casual remarks. It's really important that we phrase things rightly because yes, absolutely. If she was someone that's trying to build muscle and body build, yeah, fine, just focus on strength. But we should never discourage people from doing whatever movement they have found, even though it may not be optimal for
Yeah.
that specific thing. We just need to phrase it in the right way. So there's a lot that can be learned from communication.
It's interesting actually how much I can see you can learn from being a personal trainer and being a GP. I mean, you've chosen two incredibly challenging, time consuming jobs there. But that's so true. I mean, the narrative at the moment is obviously increased strength training, and
Mm, yeah, really important.
interestingly, specifically with women. And what I find a bit of an oxymoron is in one sentence, we know there's not enough research around women, and we need to shout about that, and we need to get more research done on women. But what then tends to follow that on social media is absolute certainty of what women should do. Well, they
Yeah.
just said there's not enough research. And while we do need to strength train. I think the important key there is the World Health Organization hasn't changed what we should do. Heart disease is still the biggest killer. And like you said, no one deadlift ever saved the planet. Consistency, starting with an experience you like that brings you back and that's personal. So, my mum, strength training to her is, can she actually carry her watering can down the garden? You know,
Yeah,
that's strength training to her, and she's
totally.
all over it.
Totally, totally. And for my mother-in-law at the moment, going up the staircase is strength training for her. She's doing leg press on every single move. Like, and it takes her a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's much frailer. And so like, yeah, we have to envision it in the right way. And I think you're right, and because you see a lot online where there's kind of very specific and bespoke programs, these are specifically menopause exercises or this or that. And in reality, there is no such thing as a single exercise that will treat a condition. No, like we just need to focus on the different components of our body. Strength is one, balance is another. Fitness is another, cardiorespiratory fitness, and coordination is another. Like these are things that we should work on and where we can, but it really depends on the individual. If I'm starting from a base where they unfortunately are quite sedentary for one reason or another, I don't care what of those they're doing, as long
yeah,
as we find something that they find enjoyable and that they can maintain. And then later down the line, we can start exploring and going, okay, what bits are we missing? How can we support you to do that? But I think too often we try to sell everything and you say, oh, you got to do this program or strength training's the best, or you got to do sprints or all the random stuff that you've
yeah.
seen on social media over the months and years. When in reality, the vast majority of people consuming that content, they just need to get moving a bit more. They just need to start feeling a bit more confident in their bodies, moving it, and we need to support that. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where they go through different forms of activity and they sort of rate it out of 10. And like just it drives me nuts because in my view, every form of sport, movement, and physical activity is 10 out of 10 as long as the person does it in the right way. That they start low, go slow, and they appreciate the kind of wider elements to minimize injuries. Otherwise, anything is 10 out of 10. You want to do Pilates, you want to dance, you want to garden, you want to walk, you want to run, whatever that is, as long as you take those considerations, you are sensible, you build it up, you will have a great fun.
I mean, I love that you said earlier you're talking about, strength training or cardio or whatever that is. And I think really as well, what you put onto that is it's all about the person. So the most important thing is, who is this person? And to them, what is a movement goal that lights them up? Whether that's tennis, whether that's going to play with grandchildren. And from there, what are their past experiences? What has made them feel good? What does moving remind them of? Is it
Mm.
is it reminding them of a horrendous time back in Warwick at my old school when we were supposed to do a PE lesson in our big pants? Was it that memory, or was it the memory of your friends cheering for you as you cross the finish line? And if we can bring in those feeling moments, but I
Mm.
love that you make it inclusive. So I wanted to say, first of all, congratulations on two things around the Boston Marathon.
Oh, oh, yes.
One, the slightly fast, rapid time you did there. I mean, that's not just good, that's
Oh, thank
impressive.
you. I was trying. Well, yeah, no, it was. I'd done Boston the year before, and it didn't go very well, at least as far as I was concerned. And so I wanted to come back this year, and like I had a lot that I wanted to prove to myself. So I went in and I trained as really consistently. I really prioritized it, and so it all came together because it's a tough course. It's hilly and it can be very difficult from a conditions point of view. But it was just the best day.
Oh, fantastic. And I mean, I love one that you went and you went, okay, this isn't the end of the story. I'm coming back and I'm going to
Mm.
consistently train. And obviously that went well, because you have to qualify first of all, don't you, for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Boston one? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, but then there was something else as well. Your success with Nike.
I know. Can you believe it? So I was just walking down the street on Newbury Street, which is one of the main streets in Boston, and we just arrived, and I saw the Nike store, and they always have normally some pretty cool messages on there, inspirational ones to encourage you at the marathon. And I read it, and it said runners welcome, walkers tolerated. And I knew exactly what they were trying to achieve because, as you say, Boston is a qualification race. Although you can get into Boston via other means. So there are a number, it's like about, I think 20% are charity runners. So they sign up for a charity and they raise, I think it's like 50 million a year for charity. So incredible work. And some can get pay through packages. So yeah, the majority of the field are qualification. And so they're trying to lean into that kind of elite mentality and potentially elitist mentality. And I saw it and I was like, "Oh, I don't like it." Like I wasn't personally offended by it because, as you say, I'm a keen runner and it clearly was targeted to try to promote me. But what I've never liked and what I do see sometimes too much in the fitness industry is that elitism. I don't like making me feel good by beating other people down. Like, why did we have to make walkers? And there are plenty of walkers at all marathons, including the Boston Marathon, and there are many runners that end up walking, either parts because that's their plan, or because they have to because the legs don't go anymore. And so I didn't like it. So anyway, I put it on social media, and I thought my usual like 5 followers would sort of give it sort of the like, and it would just do the same. But anyway, I woke up the next day and my Instagram, like, it wouldn't load. Like, it just kept crashing. And I was like, what's going on? And I actually, Shanaz, my wife, she was on her phone and she went on Instagram. She's like, oh my God, your post has gone ballistic. Like, it had already reached like 400,000 people by the next morning. And yeah, clearly a lot of people also agreed, although there were counter arguments on both sides, people feeling that people should just, not be so sensitive and that kind of thing. And in the end, Nike, within 24 hours, removed the sign and then replaced it with sort of a sign saying, like, Boston always reminds you that, like, all movement is movement. And I think, like, just brilliant. I mean, I ended up on CBS and NBC, and I think I'm more well known in Boston than I am in the UK, if I'm being honest. But it just shows that, like I think we have to move beyond
Yeah,
that kind of elitist messaging that brings other people down. Because yes, we can absolutely celebrate performance, and I think performance is brilliant. I try to get a tiny bit of it, but we don't need to make anyone feel unwelcome. I just didn't like the terminology, like
yeah,
to not be welcomed, and then they could have said running welcome, walking tolerate. Even that I don't like, but at least it's
yeah,
not an identity. Because when you're saying walkers, you're
yeah.
giving them an identity. You're saying, I just, yeah. But I'm very glad that actually something ever happened because normally these things, no change is ever achieved.
Fantastic. And I noticed that a lot of the other brands tried to cash in on it as well. There's been a lot of people. Yeah, everybody's welcome.
Yeah. And quite a few of them messaged me going like, we want to do a counter message. Like, what would you recommend? And quite a few of the brands actually reached out and said, what should we write? And look, I'm no expert when it comes to marketing or comms or anything like that, but it just seems some sensible, reasonable things. And I was quite surprised. And I shared a few of them of the brands that actually used the messaging that I gave them. And yeah, just I think we have to be one of supporting everyone, no matter what they do, what the performance level is, whether they're doing it in 8 hours or 2 hours.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? When you really look at sort of the best athletes, they support everyone. They
yeah.
don't they don't make anyone feel less than themselves, and they don't need to because
No,
they've proved themselves. And I think the best way of proving that is by bringing everyone else up.
100%. Well, I think I didn't so much walk around the Paris Marathon, but I think I pissed my way around Paris Marathon.
I've
It,
done Paris. It's a good one. There's a slightly uphill from 35 to 40K, which really destroys you at a point when you're already pretty destroyed. So well done.
yeah, well, it started off at Louis Vuitton. There were a few girls holding their shirts. And I was like, oh, could we go for a pee there as well, please? And it was a super hot day, so everybody had drunk so much. So
Yeah.
yes, that was good. But I'm working on a high rocks at the moment.
Oh, fantastic. Good
Yeah,
luck with that. That's on my list as well.
Oh, yeah, let me know. Well, you'll be speedy on that because it is
Well,
a
I hope so, because it
very,
does seem to be quite running focused. So, and
yeah.
I go to the gym quite often. So the hope is that it's my two passions sort of brought into one. We'll see.
So how much time do you get to be both GP and personal trainer?
Do you know, I've got a very varied career. So, like, if you think across the week, one day a week I do GP, and then I've got one day a week I work at Park Run. So that's the charity that runs the weekly Saturday and then for junior Sunday events as the health partnerships lead. And then I do a lot of CPD. So I work with Red Whale for education for healthcare professionals, and I focus on lifestyle medicine and obesity medicine there. And I work with Future Fit in terms of creating qualifications for personal trainers around obesity medicine and lifestyle medicine, that kind of thing. And then personal trainer, I will do that. It probably comes to about a day to a day and a half. Like the main reason I went down getting the qualifications for personal trainer was because in my work at the surgery, one thing I realized, this was before even I sort of discovered physical activity for myself, was that many of the patients were coming in with complex problems that were either worsened or caused by physical inactivity. And I needed to be able to support them better. If we really wanted to solve these problems, I had no prescription, no referral that would have just achieved what they needed. And so we started to form like walking groups and running groups and then strength-based groups. And I needed the qualifications in order to do that. And kind of that's where it went from just purely to support my patients on that journey, and also because I was interested in it, I was getting, I was becoming more and more interested in physical activity as a tool in medicine, and then after that, I then felt I really enjoy this, and actually,
Yeah.
I felt I brought something unique in terms of my understanding of medicine as well as personal training, and so I don't do it. It's not there to sort of pay the bills per se. I do an amount that I find enjoyable, and I have a certain group of people that I support. And I generally focus on those with long-term conditions because I think that's where my niche is. Like I'm not there for the kind of super elite, if I'm being honest. I've had a few sort of celebrities over the years that I've supported just because of my sort of TV doctor work. But generally, I want to support people that don't see themselves as active people. And I want to help them and give them the confidence to say that 100% we can all be an athlete. Doesn't matter what that looks like. What matters is that you enjoy it.
On that note, have you got any advice for any personal trainers that are listening? How
Mm.
to help people identify in a way with this new tribe of moving, whether that is moving with an exercise snack in the day, putting on your favorite dance tune for 2 minutes, every time you go to the bathroom or something. I don't know. Yeah, how would you advise that?
I would make sure that you spend some time getting to know that individual and finding out, what is it that's brought them to you in the first place. So clearly they've got some motivation because they've come to you, they clearly want to get more active. Often the motivations are around weight loss or around maybe trying to improve their health. They've got type 2 diabetes. That may be the reason where health becomes applicable. Now, for me, like using physical activity for weight loss as like the key driver, I think is gonna always end up in disaster.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame because people measure the success of the physical activity journey based on how much weight they lose. But in reality, that's not the right metric. They should be focusing on the health they're gaining and the, improvement in their blood pressure, in their mental health, in their bone density, in their muscle strength, blah, blah, blah. And yes, we can say that, yeah, physical activity is really important for weight in general, but we shouldn't be using it as the lever to achieve direct weight loss. Instead, we should focus it on the lever of actually to get you to feel strong, to feel confident, and to have fun. So I would really try and work on that perception because many still go to their trainer hoping for that outcome. You will not achieve it, no matter how good you are. I promise you, for the vast majority of your clients, you will not achieve it, and then they will feel like either you or they are failing. So yeah, make sure that you align the perception of physical activity and get them to measure the right things. So get them to check in and feel like how much energy do they have day to day? What's their sleep like? What's the mood like? How are they finding doing day-to-day tasks? So sometimes, like when it comes to, let's say, getting to the gym, which is on the first floor, like I always get them to do 2 steps at a time on the staircase. Like whenever they hit the stairs, we'll do 2 steps. And then over the weeks and months, I will look out to see how they do that. And sometimes I will notice things they don't. I'll say, do you know what, John, you're doing those stairs so much quicker than 2, 3 months ago. Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing? And so you try to get them to be more sensitive to picking up those changes because then they really enjoy it.
Yeah. And that is the key, the enjoyment and finding that place. Um, it is difficult, and one of the things that frustrates me a little bit is the education for
Mm.
trainers. I do
Yeah.
feel like um, in sort of the dynamics of how old the fitness industry, it's still relatively young. And it was
Yeah.
born obviously out of Arnie and muscles. And that wasn't health and wellness. A six pack isn't the image of health and wellness. And as we navigate into this new space of wellness, you know, the fitness industry have profited nicely out of this narrative of weight, and
Mm.
that was never backed by the balance of quality research. And so when you said, how someone feels, well, 9 times out of the 10 you are setting someone up for a failure and that loss of self-efficacy. And I'm still seeing, so I've been in the fitness industry for over 38 years and education for 15, and I still see education companies teaching outdated narratives.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Sure. The course that I did when I trained was awful. I'm gonna be honest. Like some of the stuff on like the nutrition, I was like, this is all wrong.
yeah,
I wonder if they changed it. I sent them feedback, but yeah, you're right. And I
yeah,
think there's a huge range in terms of quality. There is some great stuff out there, but
yep,
then
of
there's a
course.
wide range, and it's sometimes hard to navigate.
Yeah. Well, do you have any tips for trainers on that? One of the things that we do at Faster Health and Fitness is we give trainers the tools to critically evaluate research, because not all of the trainers come to us having
Yeah,
a degree, and not all
yeah, yeah,
are
exactly.
confident in that. But having said that, um, personal trainers aren't stupid and they deserve a lot of respect. They're really passionate about what they do.
100%. No, 100%. And like, for example, I deliver training for both healthcare professionals and fitness professionals. And one of the things I do is around obesity medicine. And I set them the same quiz at the end, just as a bit of a kind of reflection on, what they've learned to see how it implies. And when it comes to, in particular, nutrition, sleep, and obviously physical activity, they destroy the healthcare professionals in terms of results. I keep all the stats because I've got the on Menti, and it really just shows you how knowledgeable and often how passionate they are to acquire knowledge in this space. The one thing I will say is for personal trainers, like when you get asked questions that you do not know the answer to, it's totally okay to tell your client, do you know what, I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but I can look that up for you because you've developed those skills to, let's say, explore and investigate the research. Because as healthcare professionals, we're a lot better at that because we know that if we say something that the patient then goes, well, that's wrong, we are liable.
yeah,
And so just try and sometimes I overhear when I'm on the shop floor and I'm hearing personal trainers clearly trying to answer a question they don't know the answer to. It's like, it's totally fine. Like as a doctor, I will often say to patients, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I actually
yeah.
don't know what's going on here. Let's explore it. And I've never found that patients have taken that negatively. In fact, they're a bit more reassured that where my limitations are met, I will be honest about it and say, I'm not going to just leave it there. I'm going to ask a colleague, I'm going to do a bit of research, and I'll get back to you. That's totally fine.
I think that's fabulous advice. With those two different worlds, you know, is there a way that you can see both improving slightly to meet each other so that we can work together? Because
Oh, yeah.
we do not want trainers stepping outside their scope of practice. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
physiotherapists, they're not mental health specialists, but we are movement experience makers, and we can create those stories, those experiences for anyone that walks through the door.
100%, 100%. No, I feel really strongly about this because I think there's resource base both fronts in both sectors that we could utilize. And in fact, one of the projects I'm working on, which is moving together, is trying to break down those barriers between health and physical activity. because we don't need formalized referral processes for the vast majority of patients. Yes, I think exercise and referral should be there for the kind of most severe forms of long-term conditions where we need very specialist training in order to support them. For the vast majority of people with long-term conditions, which is like 45% of the UK population, a personal trainer that's reached the level 3 and above is more than competent at supporting these kind of individuals, and we should be actively signposting them to there. So we don't need to have a referral. A GP can literally just say, why don't you head to your nearest leisure centre or contact a local private PA, form those relationships, get a bit of an awareness of what's out there, and signpost them in that direction. We've been doing it in Leamington for ages. We have a number of personal trainers that we will send to in order to get our patients supported with that tend to have specialist interests, whether it is women's health, whether it's over 50s, etc. And I want to see more of that happening because exercise referral is great, but the number of referrals coming in really, really low, and the amount of patients that need support is really high. And so we just need to start having a bit more of an informal collaboration and get to know each other in the same way that, GPs engage with social prescribers and dietitians, etc. Personal trainers need to be seen as there. And we also have exercise physiologists, which are starting to become more likely, but they should be reserved for the complex stuff. For the bread and butter, we need to be getting that to the personal trainers. They've got so much expertise to share.
For me, the exercise referral program, we run a injury to performance group, and what I find is the exercise referral, again, it gets a little bit bogged down without the nuance. So
Yeah.
you get a lot of information, but not everybody experiences cancer in the same way. They don't all respond to medication in the same way. And in some instances with mental health, we don't even know the mechanisms of why someone's experiencing something anyway. So the treatment of that. But what we again need as trainers is the tools and the process to be able to make it specific
Yeah.
to them. I know that we're kind of running out of time, and there's so many things. I'm gonna have to get you to come back so we can have another half an
Yeah,
hour
happily.
if that's great. And I definitely want to catch up with you and ask you a couple of questions afterwards. But I want to know after you've finished your Boston Marathon and you're doing your recovery. I don't want to know about the longevity recovery. What's your meal? What's your go-to?
Well, I can tell you what I ate straight away after crossing the line. I literally turned the corner around the finish and I headed towards a bakery that sold the most amazing cookies. Like these giant, they're like the size of a mountain. And they give a free one to every marathon medal finisher. So I went straight into there, grabbed a cookie, and it was probably the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. Otherwise, what else did I have? That I had chowder because I was in Boston, and they're
Nice.
very into that. So yeah, definitely had a bit of a celebration meal with a cookie and a chowder. Probably not the most optimal recovery food, but it was emotionally great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all your great work. And yeah, I would love to catch up with you a little bit more about some of the other topics on another occasion. So
Definitely
I'll
look
let
forward to it.
everybody know where they can get hold of you as well. And thank you very much.